that there was a name of my team, even if it had a storied history that was offending a sizable group of people. I think about changing it.
Hi, we're back on NPR Radio, and this is Emma Majorsack coming to you live. Recently, there has been much debate over the use of Native American traditions as mascots and cheers. That last segment was President Obama reporting that if he were the Redskins manager, he would seriously consider a change of name. Owner of the Washington Redskins, Dan Snyder, responded to Obama's suggestion with an emotional letter to his season ticket owners just 4 days later on October 9th. In this letter, he mentioned the tradition and namesake of the Redskins, along with statistics to back up his perspective. Here with me today, I have Anna Duffy, a Canadian historian, and Kaitlyn Slinkard, the defensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, to debate the issue. To start off our discussion, I would like to ask each of you where you stand on the issue.
Hi, I'm Anna, and personally, I firmly believe that using Native American mascots is unjust.
Hi, I'm Kaitlyn, and I think that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Native American mascot, as long as it does not offend the majority of Americans and the tribes.
What makes each of you feel so strongly about this issue?
I feel as though Native American mascots are dehumanizing to the Native populations. These mascots portray Native Americans as wild beasts without absolutely no morals. Many of these team names would be unacceptable in the United States culture if they applied to another race. For example, Blackskins, a very similar name to the Redskins, would be called out as racist. I have observed in American society, you tend to be very careful with your words when talking about black people, given their brutal history in the first 200 years of your nation's founding. However, when it comes to Native Americans, you often dismiss how racist you are being. Unlike the Canadian people and government, the U.S. came in and spread diseases, killed the Native populations, set fire to their villages, relocated them into uninhabitable lands, and then forced them out of these areas, leaving them without any land. You have the moral imperative as a country to defend the Native Americans and make sure that you're never offending them.
May I jump in here?
Go ahead.
While those points are very valid, I must disagree. Yes, we did torture the Native Americans. However, these mascots are not offending Native Americans. They are really more of a compliment. For example, the name the Atlanta Braves portrays Native Americans as brave warriors, not brutal creatures.
Oh, would you like me to play a brief clip of the song?
That would be great. This song actually dubs Native Americans as braves on the warpath and praises them.
That brings me to my next question. Do you think that the logos of these teams are just?
Some of them yes, while others no. I think that the logos of the Blackhawks, the Redskins, and the Chiefs are all fine. On the other hand, the Atlanta Braves have a logo that I would find very offensive if I were a Native American.
Yes, I completely agree with that. The Atlanta Braves logo portrays the head of the Native American chief with its mouth wide open looking up. He has a feather in his hair with a mohawk. It gives him more of a negative connotation of the Native Americans and makes them look very savage.
I think it is important to think about how we would feel if we were placed in the Native American situation. I believe that we would feel mocked and upset, given everything that our ancestors have been through. To put this in perspective, think about how you would feel if you were an Asian American and, for example, there was a team named like the Orientals or the Squinties. Or if you were a Southerner and there was a team named the Rednecks. Or even if you were an Irish Catholic and a football team name was the Tigers. Besides being flat out wrong, these names are politically incorrect, similar to the Native American names like the Cleveland Indians. There's not one other team that mocks another ethnic group like the names the Cleveland Indians, the Blackhawks, or even the Redskins.
That is where I must disagree with you, because if you look at the statistics, most Native Americans are not very upset with the names. Only 10% actually said they want the names to be changed, while the rest of the majority, 90%, does not really care.
Yes, that's a very interesting point that you made there. However, I cannot emphasize enough that you must look at the names with the perspective of a Native American in mind. There was once a philosopher named John Rawls who came up with the term veil of ignorance. This is the idea that by analyzing a situation without the bias of where you stand in a society, your motivation will be pure. If everyone put themselves under this veil of ignorance, I am very doubtful that the names would be considered acceptable. Simply because this is morally wrong for a percentage of Americans is a reason for these teams to change their names.
Once more, I have to disagree with you. This is because numerically the majority is against changing the name. Therefore, consequentially, there is not a moral obligation to change the name.
Okay, now I would like to hear some of the views of our listeners on the Native American mascots. Our first caller is Ryan Smith from Washington, D.C. Hello, Ryan.
Hi. First, I'm so grateful to have made it on the show.
It's great to have you. So, Ryan, how do you feel about the situation?
Well, I'm a huge Redskins fan, and I have no problem with their name, even though it's controversial throughout society. It is such a huge part of their team history, since it has been around for so many years. It is a tradition that must be kept, and there are many people that agree. For example, Hail to the Redskins, quote unquote, is an iconic song for all Redskin fans. I remember from a young age singing this song while cheering on the Redskins.
Thanks, Ryan. And now we will go to Joan, a student from Radnor, Pennsylvania.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Joan, a student from Radnor High School. My school is also debating this issue because our school mascot is the Raider. It has become a large issue within our community, and recently a ban has been placed on logos of Native Americans on any of our school's sports team shirts. I think that if people in our school are offended by it, then it needs to be diminished, along with the Redskins name and logo.
Thanks, Joan. And that will be all for today's morning broadcast. From NPR Radio, I'm Emma Majorsack.
I'm Kaitlyn Slinkard.
And I'm Anna Duffy.
Thanks to all of our listeners, and have a great day, America.